Hello, TCI family, Jonathan's Refuge, and all of our faithful followers around the globe. It's an honor and a pleasure to come to you and into your home on your tablets and your phones as you're traveling. I value the fact that you even take the 15 or 20 minutes that we broadcast our message each week to tune in and see what we're doing and being part of our organization. We appreciate your time, your donations of your time, your donations of your charitable income that you donate to our organization. If you're wondering how to do that, please reach out to us. Go to the website, email us, contact us. There's a bunch of different ways. Facebook, we have our page for the Church of Inclusion. The website is www.inclusion.church. And reach out to us. See how you can help. We love you guys. So let's get into the message. It's an interesting one this week, one that I physically lived and walked through myself, not years ago, but just this week. The message is titled, When There Is No More Gas in the Tank. What do you do? And that's a good question. So this last week, myself and two men, one of them from our organization, The Refuge, another one is part of my executive team at my nonprofit. And we were out climbing a mountain, a pretty good sized mountain, 12,281 feet, Mount Adams in the state of Washington, one of the 5 active volcanoes here. This was my 4th time climbing it, but I had never summited the mountain yet. I had a frozen foot that stopped us the first time with a defaulted boot. The second time I climbed it was in between 2 heart surgeries, 1 week apart from 2 heart surgeries. So had a heart surgery, and a week later got married, and then went and climbed this mountain. And then a week later had another heart surgery. So I could only get up to about 9,300 feet. And I wasn't trying to summit on that one anyways. And then the third time, the same 2 men went with me, and we were expecting to summit. And this was also last year in, I think, August or September, I believe September 8th. And I ended up having some more heart problems on the mountain and could not continue. So I'd been staring at this mountain for quite some time, for a full year and maybe a year and a half that I'd been up to this place getting to know this mountain. And this time we went at it, and I had sheer determination that I was not going to stop unless I came down successfully summiting the mountain. It's not a technically complicated mountain. It actually, if you look at it, it's pretty simple. Just a huge mountain. It's actually the largest mass volcano in the 48 states. It's gigantic. And so to get from the trailhead where you park your car is at 5,500 feet. And then you got to walk up to 9,300 feet. And that's called Lunch Counter. And you camp there. And that takes usually about 9 hours to get up there. And we did it in 7. So we shaved 2 hours off our time. Great job, Jacinto. And being disabled, our time was pretty impressive. And then we spent the night, and we rested, and we were studying the false summit, which is the next largest portion of this trip. And it's a face that it goes up really steep. From the time you start on the glacier heading up, you're probably angle-wise between most of your spots are between 30 and 45 degree angles. Not a lot at 45. But mainly between 30 and 40. And then there's a couple 45 degree angles where you're pretty steep. And then there's the very top. And it had the slope had melted so that it was actually at a couple points at a 60 degree angle, which is terrifying. And having a person like me who is terrified of heights and terrified of falling, this is a fear that I had to figure out, could I overcome this? My dreams of climbing Denali and Mount Rainier and Mount Everest someday and all these great mountains, could it come to a stop right here, right now? And we went up and got to Lunch Counter on Friday. And then Saturday, we ended up doing a rest day because it was something I never did. I always pushed my body just to go, 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 go. And I realized I needed a rest day. So we took a rest day on Saturday, and we enjoyed our fellowship. We spent hours melting. You have to melt snow from the glacier to get water because there's no water source up there. And so we had a good time in fellowship. And then we took assessment of our gear, and we realized we left some very important things at home, like gloves. Now you say, wait, it was like 80 degrees out. Yes, down at sea level it was. But up on top of the summit, it was only 30 degrees. Not bad, but with 25 to 30 mile an hour winds, it drops it down drastically. And you can get frostbite and you can damage yourself, especially on those cold days. So how do we overcome those obstacles? Could that stop us? No, I had sheer determination. So we always keep extra wool mountain socks in our bags in case our socks and stuff ever gets soaked, which that happens from time to time. So we just took big wool socks and put them on our hands. It's an old trick my dad taught me when I was a young man, learning my ways as the mountain man in the Sierra Nevadas and the Cascade Mountain Range. And so we had the ability now to go and attack this ridge. And I say attack because you never conquer a mountain. If you think you conquer a mountain, then you don't understand mountaineering. You don't conquer a mountain, you conquer you. That's the only thing you're conquering. The mountain lets you climb it, or it didn't. And the weather came in and stopped you. But you didn't conquer a mountain. You conquered yourself. And so my fear the whole time, I'm staring at this thing. It's called the False Summit. It's this huge slope. And I'm just like, not telling the guys, but I'm terrified. I'm scared. And I knew one of our teammates was not able to make this part of the climb. And so I was going to have a talk with him that morning, but I didn't want him to know at that point. So I let him go to sleep thinking he was still going to climb it. And then that morning, I again never shared with my other teammate, Tim, that I was going to be telling him at that moment how scared I was. And I didn't. I kept that quiet to myself. I was like, boy, that stuff sure scares me. But I didn't let him know how bad until we got on the face. And so that morning we started out at 3 a.m. And that was on Sunday, this last Sunday. And most people get up there in 2.5 to 3.5 hours. And being slow and all the issues with my body, I was surprised. We made it up. We actually made it to the top of the False Summit. And this dredge up was just brutal. And you have ice crampons on and you have an ice axe. And so you have to stick your feet into the snow and kind of follow steps. People usually have steps that you just follow the person in front of you, except the winter is gone. The summer has blown off most of the snow that's slushy. So you're left with really the ice from the glacier that's on that face. Very hard. And so it was very slick and dangerous. And so we're not able to shove our ice axe down in like most people could. You know, in a lot of places you could get it in a couple inches. And as you got higher, those couple inches got less and less and less. And then we got to a point where we ended up getting off the glacier. And I looked, and the side, we had a large path of all rocks and boulders. Very dangerous because those boulders come and you got to dodge them. And it happens all the time. During that day, we dodged boulders the size of about 4 basketballs put together to make one boulder. And that's about the size of these boulders that we were dodging that get dislodged from the snow and ice, the wind, other people stepping on it above you. They got to scream rock, and everyone stops and looks, and you got these massive boulders coming to kill you. And so we're climbing up this, and my climbing partner, Tim, he says, hey, listen, this other team's going up the face of the snow again. And I'm like, that looks steep. And this is the part that we didn't realize until we got on it, that at some point in that part, we got up to almost a 60-degree angle. I mean, it was like straight up. And but the most of it was 45 to 50 until you got to that final lip, and then it was just straight up that face. So we're going up, and you can't kick in anymore. And I was terrified halfway up this mountain. The fear got me so gripped that I was inside crying and tearing up like a little child. And I was wrapped in fear. And I had to look to my teammate, my climbing partner, and I had to say, can you help kick the path for me? And he says, absolutely. Now, I didn't know that he had fears just like me. And he didn't know that I had fears at that moment either. We were just both kind of taking turns leading. I said, I'll lead the first part, and I did. And then I'm like, hey, could you take turns kicking it in and leading the second? He did. But we were both terrified, keeping ourselves quiet, not letting each other know this. And so we're going up, and as we're going, he's kicking in steps, and I'm following step by step, and we're getting to the very top, and we're now back off those rocks, getting back onto the ice, following another group of people. And that's when that face came, and it's just so vertically high. And I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I had no more gas in me. Physically, I was just exhausted. Every bone in my body hurt. Every muscle hurt. I was terrified. I was so gripped with fear that I just wish, please fall like a wind, blow me off so I can just die and get this over with. At least I'll die doing something I love. And that's when all of a sudden I had to face my fear. See, fear is FEAR, face everything and rise. And so a couple things I want to mention to you, and that is this. When you look at the concept of fear and what it means, I look at Proverbs. It's a book out of the Jewish faith, and a man named King Solomon, one of the wisest men of all times. And the Christian faith uses it. The Jewish faith quote him. The Muslims quote him. Faith from all over the world quote this man. Atheists quote Solomon because he was such a genius. Here's what he said. He said it in many different ways. I'm going to quote 3 different kinds of scriptures that it's written out of, but it's Proverbs chapter 3, verse 25. Do not be afraid of sudden terror. Have no fear of sudden disaster. Do not be afraid of sudden danger. This thought came to my head while on the face. And you know what I said? Go to hell, Solomon. You've never been on a face this steep. You're out of your mind. Well, let me tell you something. Solomon did come to me. I could feel his wisdom, and I could hear that moment where you have to just breathe, and you have to take and ask for the great architect, God. And that's what I did in Philippians. In the New Testament, in the Christian faith, there's a book called Philippians. And in chapter 4, verse 13, it says, I can do all things through the great architect of the universe who gives me strength. And I heard one of my young mentors, as a young man, an older mentor, I should say, but I was a young man, telling me that scripture over and over and over. That I can do all things through the great architect of the universe who gives me strength. I could feel my ancestors around me. I could hear my breath and my heart, and I started to slow it. And as I started to slow my heart, it got even more dangerous. At a point, I had to shove my ice axe, the pick of it. So you've got this long shaft, 72 inches long, and then on the top you got this ice axe, right? And the front of it's a sharp point. And I'm smashing it. I'm a strong guy, and I'm hard as I can, and it's only going in 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch. This glacier is not bending, okay? And then I got my ice crampons, and I'm shoving them. You can't walk them flat. You can only shove the tips of the 2 claws into the ice itself. And so you got 2 on each shoe, so 4 points that are only going in 1/4 of an inch. And your ice axe is in 1/4 of an inch. And I got my knees on the ice. That's how steep it is. And you're gripped with fear. What do you do? And that's when I centered myself. And I took a breath, and I just put one foot in front of the other. And I said, I can do all things because the great architect is with me. And I just kept climbing and kept taking that breath slowly, methodically. And I knew that I could accomplish this. And in front of me was my climbing partner, Tim. And we both did the exact same thing without speaking a word to each other. We never spoke during this time at all. It was so gripping. And so what's interesting is I remember hearing this a long time ago. The wisest, most loving, and successful people on earth have been shattered before. I'm not trying to say I'm the wisest person on earth, but I'm telling you that I have been shattered before. And I remember how I got over those things. And this was all going through my mind as I was doing this face. I remember the time when I was homeless for a year back in Wichita, Kansas. I had just left this underworld, and I was a crime figure that was very feared and very powerful and very wealthy. And now I'm walked away from it all, and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do? And I ended up going and living on the street for a year under bridges. Now, I wasn't a man that begged for anything. You never saw a sign of me sitting on the street corner, give me food, give me money. No, I had a dog, and people would stop, and you need food for that dog. And they literally would go get, I never said anything. They'd give me dog food, bags of dog food. And I remember, wow, it's easier to get dog food than to ask for food for me. So me and my dog just ate dog food for the year. It was a very tough time in my life. And so I remember, how did I get through that? How did I make it through those times? I remember when I had my strokes and I was completely immobilized, had the tube down my throat, and I'm being kept alive, right? But I could hear everybody. Couldn't move, couldn't talk, but I could hear everybody. And I remember they said I'd never walk again. And then I had that sheer determination. But the fear grabbed me first. That's it. My life's done. I'll never make love again. I'll never climb a mountain again. I'll never walk a granddaughter down the aisle. I'll never do anything again. And then all of a sudden, I remembered those words. I can do all things through the great architect of the universe. And then I remembered Solomon. Do not be afraid of sudden terror. Do not be afraid of sudden disaster. Do not be afraid of sudden danger. Those things are real. I watched a lady last year on that same spot fall, and she fell 1,500 feet. Not to her death. She lived, but she broke a lot of bones and had to be medevaced out of there. So when you look at Mount Adam, it doesn't see a large death rate on there. There are very few because it's not technical, but this one spot. And it can be very dangerous. And all those things were running through my head. They're just negative thoughts going through my head. And I had to stop them. Number one, I want you to use this technique. Positive talk. You don't have to speak out loud. Positive thoughts only. So I started repeating in my head all day yesterday, JB. You watched people successfully climb this mountain. You watched a tango line of people going up. And they went over and went to the other side of the mountain to the summit, came back, and successfully came down. You can do this. And I kept repeating those positive thoughts. You have accomplished great feats on mountains before. This might be the tallest you've ever taken on yet, but you have accomplished great feats on mountains before. You got this. You have been training for this every week. You've got this. You have the best tools at your disposal. You've got this. People below are looking at you to find the path. You got this. Our positive thinking can lead us to success. Or if we have negative thinking, you got to get rid of that stinking thinking. If I kept thinking, I'm going to slip, I'm going to slip, I'm going to slip, I promise you I would have slipped. But I just kept thinking my ice axe is the best it is, and I know what I'm doing. My ice crampons are the best in the business, and I know what I'm doing. And then keep exposing yourself to your fear. So how do I overcome these things? I keep climbing. Right after this, a couple weeks from now, I'm going to be headed to Mount Baker, another volcano, one of the 5 active ones. And it is a more technical climb, and you're crossing over big crevasses, and people die on that mountain through the crevasse falling into the abyss. And I keep going. And after that one, I'm headed to Rainier again. And I've climbed Rainier, not summited. I've climbed on Rainier, and I'm going to climb it until I summit that one. And then I'm headed to Denali at 20,300 feet and change. And I'm going to keep going until I either die and the good Lord takes me home, or I conquer all those fears. Because I keep exposing myself to my fear. Slow down, quiet your heart, take a breath. I've been through a lot in my life. The violence, the things I've seen, the executions I've seen in Mexico, the torture, people being skinned alive, horrific things that I can't get out of my subconscious. They're locked in there. How did I overcome those things? I slowed my breath. I slowed my heart. I took my fear and I held on to it for a second and said, okay, I got this. I started thinking positive thoughts and I made it through. I can overcome this. I know these things in my head are always going to be there, but I can replace them in the front with more positive thoughts. And I spent the last decades of my life taking almost 3 decades now and sowing good seed and helping people that are disabled and helping people who are broken and lost. So now I've got these great memories right up front, not all the old bad memories from my past. You too can do the same thing. You can overcome your fear that way. So as you look at your fear, remember, FEAR, face everything and rise. We must rise to the occasion to overcome our fears. It is not easy. I wanted to quit. I was praying that a rock would bounce off and take me out. I was so terrified. We got up. We still had to climb across the whole mountain, which was not hard. Then you get to the backside and you got another 800 feet to go straight up another wall, but it wasn't ice, so I was okay. And then at that point, I didn't care because I did it. And then we got to the summit, 12,281 feet, and we got the summit pictures. And if you go on my Facebook page, you can see it, or hashtag live positive, hashtag expedition live positive is our Facebook page for our climbing group. And I'll post it on our church's Facebook page. And we got summit pictures up there. And then we came down. And the whole way down, you know what I was thinking? Oh my God, we got to go down that face. I can't do it. I can't do it. Maybe I got a billionaire who's a friend of mine. If I call him and tell him I can't get off this thing, he'll send a helicopter. He'll pay the $300,000 to get a helicopter up here because I'm good for it. And that's what I was thinking. And it's true. It's true. He would have. And so I'm thinking that thought. And then all of a sudden I get to there and I said, all right, I got this. Because that thought was there for a second. And I grabbed that thought and I said, no, I got this. I climbed up that. I can climb down it. And we went down and it wasn't that bad anymore. I faced it. Now I know what to do on that cliff. And it's not going to scare me again as the way it did last time. And the best part is about a third of the way down, it got to the glacier with these glissading trails. So you sit on your butt and you sit up and then you take your ice axe and use it like a brake and you go zinging down. The mountain that took us 3.5 hours to climb took us 10 minutes to slide down on our butts. It was amazing, an epic journey, but it didn't end there. We still had another 6 hours or so to get off the mountain, but I had damaged my feet so bad that it took us, I think we didn't get into the car until 9 o'clock that night. And then we had to drive home 7 hours. We didn't pull in. So it had been 26 hours by the time I got to the house. I couldn't even walk. My toes to this moment are still pretty damaged. I've got blisters everywhere because of some complications. So as I end this, I'm not trying to say, I'm some superhero. I'm not by any means. But I accomplished a great goal in my life, a great goal for me. And I overcame a massive fear in my life by using those techniques that I just talked about, by using positive thinking over and over. And so when you're thinking those thoughts, my husband's going to leave me, my husband's going to leave me, my husband's going to leave me, he's going to leave you. Start thinking positive thoughts. My wife's cheating on me, my wife's cheating on me. Start thinking positive thoughts. My boss is going to fire me, my boss is going to fire me. I'm not enough. Then you're not. You have to have that positive reaffirmation, the positive affirmation continually going over and over in your mind, playing the video. And it's a video and you just play it over. And I did that. I played it over and over of me climbing this mountain. And then I finally did it. I achieved it because I believed it in my heart. I know it's an old acronym that you're probably tired of hearing, but if you can believe it, you can achieve it. And you might say that sounds stupid and corny. Well, that stupid and corny saying is what allowed me to make millions of dollars. So you can laugh at it all you want. My millions of dollars laughed back at you because of that little saying. If you believe it, you can achieve it. It's true. The great architect of the universe is with you. Whatever you're going through, the Department of Corrections, lifetime supervision, parole, divorce, rape, murders, anything that you have either done or had done to you, you can overcome it. As I have, did, and will continue to do. I love you guys. I appreciate your time. We try to keep them between 15 and 20 minutes. I went a few minutes over. But listen, I love you guys. I really do. If you're interested in coming out on our adventures with us, please reach out to the church. Get a hold of us. There's so many of you that say, when are you guys doing another climb or a hike? We go every week, and we take smaller climbs, and we take people that have no hands. We take people who are disabled. We take men, women, people from all backgrounds, faiths, criminal backgrounds, non-criminal backgrounds. We even take, people who are normal, whatever that means. Come out with us. Get involved. See how you can help us change the world one person at a time. Love you guys. God bless.